Hi, this is me, Oten from Nerdimations, and I'm finally back with the Uncolonized series. I know, I've not been working on this thing for about a month at this point. But hey, I'm back. And let's finish out World War II. Now, with the major fronts now stalling in 1943 as the Allies and the Axis are both busy focusing on other fronts besides the African ones. This allows Congolese to kind of go back to their old job of simply just as being the massive factory that helped fund the war effort, taking a bit of pressure off of America. Meanwhile, the southern nations, and at this point, we're still peaceful. They didn't want war because they saw it as too costly. And they saw what had happened to Congo right beforehand. But the Axis was starting to fall down, with the Congolese liberating all their provinces, as they were able to take back new territory. And by late 1943, this was about the front. With now Uganda and Kivu were thinking of joining World War II on the Axis' side, seeing that there was no way they'd win. Also, British and Somali aid in Ethiopia would contribute to the kingdom winning the war. In mid-1944, Sudan and the Zande Republic would both surrender, both now seeing the war as nothing but a burden on their economies. And they believe that if it continued, it would possibly their country's livelihoods. And so these he stopped entirely. Also, for some reason, in this small state, he put a claim upon the entirety of Libya, but we all know that is not going to work on God's green earth. Quickly, what remained of the Axis in the north began to fall apart. Morocco just quit the idea. Soon after, the Malian dictatorship was overthrown by, say, British spies, and the Ivory State, Algeria, Tunisia, and Egypt stayed as the only countries still continuing to pour their support into the war by 1944. By this time, Allies had already taken Algeria and Tunisia, and currently there was only Egypt left siding with the Axis. They were well cooked and destroyed by the British. And by the end of 1944, there was almost nobody remaining. The Ivory Kingdom was the only one actually doing anything at this point. And actually, they'd continue fighting through early 1946, when finally they gave up on the war effort too. Not because they were defeated, but rather they just got sick and tired of fighting. The Ivory Kingdom just kind of has a ton of balls, I guess. It was the Ivory Kingdom's people who wanted to stop the fighting, and also did a coup d'état, which ended up in a democracy. Now, we're going to go to Africa, besides the war, and at the end of the war, I mean. Here is the map from 1936, I guess. First, we're having the old Sudan back. Yay! The dictatorial Sudanese government was overthrown in a coup d'etat that was known for how swift and successful it was, with Sudan returning to democracy in just a few years. Not that the democracy was amazing, and the country was still war-ridden, and the country was still corrupt. Ethiopia,
but nowhere near as corrupt.
Ethiopia would stay with all the territory they had before, and they continuously try and push for more punishment and the access. Meanwhile, other countries didn't have it as well. The Ivory Kingdom didn't actually go to the peace conference and didn't actually care or give a about what happened there.
As was its leaders during World War II, but they got an overthrown in a coup d'etat, remember?
And then there's Cameroon. Cameroon would be divided between its neighbors. There's the more English-speaking part of the country that would have been more trade-bound would become its own country. Right, the northern parts that were more northern and central parts that were more natives, as were separated from each other. Meanwhile, places that had more influences of other nearby countries, these had their territories given to those countries. The Sokoto were pretty happy with this one. And as for the first time, they actually get something through a world war, and don't lose anything. We'll see them soon, sooner or later, to revise those borders. Basically, Cameroon was partitioned. Now, at first the Cameroon was not very happy with this, but the Allies were like, do you really have another choice? Meanwhile, Gabon finally ended some of the last Congo region and microstates. It's here. They're truly ending the age of feudal kingdoms in Africa. Now the three Cameroons could hopefully get along. They almost fought a war 3 times in a row. In 1 year. These countries have unholy amounts of beef.
But luckily they did cool down
around 1947.
And even made an alliance, the Cameroon alliance,
to defend themselves specifically from the Sokoto, who they saw as a threat to their peace. Now let's see the other places. The Mali Empire was punished. And when I say punished, I mean punished. They were stripped of quite a bit of land in the south, to compensate for all the countries they invaded during those times. They were all because
the dictatorial government again coup d'etat
by another dictatorial government,
which was coup d'etat
by another dictatorial government. But these dictators were a bit nicer than the other ones, and did bend into the treaty. Probably not because they were exactly too nice, but rather because as the British were threatening to basically vaporize the country. They, the meanwhile, the original government was planned to sometime soon take over, but no such change in government would ever actually occur, and it would simply the old dictatorship, now a new dictatorship, that would stay as the governors of the country, right? Which is
in a civil war, of course, over democracy.
Sadly, the Democrats would lose the war in 1949. It seems that here dictatorship does prevail. But we don't need those sounds. Meanwhile, we also have the Allies, who are colonizers, who do want more territory. But once again, Ethiopia, Somalia, and the Dakota and the Congo shot down every single one of their ideas as fast as they came up.
And not just that, other African countries each chimed in such big numbers that it was basically impossible to get a African nation on their side.
Not even more, they basically forced the decolonization of the Levant, even though Iraq would stay in for another few years. Meanwhile, they also had the idea that we will allow the Jews to have a place to live. They seem live as long as they don't fight each other. We're pretty much good. Yes, we wish
Africans shut down. Tried to shut down the idea, as they thought that this was more like this was a lot like what they had been trying to prevent in Africa.
But the border would still come in. Some people really should get hindsight. But anyways, those would be the border changes. I know it's not exactly that crazy, as most people didn't actually want countries to significantly expand. Anyways, thank you. Please like and subscribe, and goodbye.